Good morning everyone and Happy New Year to everybody out there. Right, I've been asked about wiring up a oil temperature gauge. So I've got the bits now eventually and I'll show you how it's done. It's so simple it's untrue. So basically you've got your gauge, simple £20 cheapo gauge. It is a VDO gauge, so it's supposed to be good, but we'll see. That's the gauge. Then obviously you've got your dipstick, which I like the dipstick because one, you can move it from car to car dead easy, two, it's easy to wire up, and three, it's quite flexible and can be fitted in minutes. It is adjustable, so you get your original dipstick, you measure it up, you adjust that to where the stopper is on your dipstick, and you just put a little cut mark where your oil levels are on there. That's your dipstick done. Wiring up wise, basically again it's pretty simple. You've got two terminals on the dipstick. One is a copper terminal, one is a brass terminal. The brass terminal goes to your earth. Okay, it's as simple as that. And then the other one goes to your gauge. So the brass one again goes to earth, and the copper one goes to the gauge, which is I've done a yellow wire, make it stand out a little bit for you. So we'll shove that one on there. So basically there's your gauge and there's your dipstick. You've got your yellow wire which goes from the terminal on there to the gauge terminal, which is marked with a G on the gauge. Then you've got your earth wires. Well, I've joined the dipstick wire onto the earth wire of the terminal, but obviously on the engine that will bolt to the block or somewhere. So you've got your earth going through the engine block instead of going to the gauge, and then you have an earth to the gauge, and then you have a feed to your ignition switch. Again, I've just mocked up a battery, and what I'm going to do now, obviously your bulb goes in there by the way, but I'm going to put some LEDs in there, so we'll worry about that later. So that's it basically then. So to run through again, you've got your feed, which is your plus to your ignition switch. You've got your earth to your earth terminal, ground on the body or into your loom. You've got your yellow wire going from the gauge terminal to the dipstick, and then you've got your earth from your dipstick to wherever you want to run your earth to on the engine block. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat up some water. Bear with me. Okay, and we'll just test it, make sure the gauge and the dipstick are working. So obviously again, plus to your gauge, minus to your gauge and your dipstick. On you go. We've got no reading because there's no temperature there, so we will put the dipstick when the water's boiled into the boiling water. See if we get a reading at the moment, just to check, make sure the gauge is working and make sure the dipstick's working. As you can see, it's slowly going up. Don't know if you can see that on the gauge, but it's slowly moving up as the water gets hotter. What we are now, just above 120. I will run it up to boiling point to find out where boiling point is on the gauge, and I think it's just below 220 Fahrenheit on this. I think it's 212 Fahrenheit for 100 degrees. So I know myself how far the gauge is out, but it's going up to 180 now, so it's all working nicely. And to be honest with you, I have tested this before, so I didn't look a plum on this video if it all went pear-shaped. Job done. So what we'll do now then is I'll transfer it down to the car. We can wire it into the car and you can see exactly how it transfers from the desk to the car. I've also done a wiring diagram which I'll flash up in a minute for you, so you can go from there. Right, so do we need to play this anymore? No, 180 that'll do. Right then, so drop that down there, I'll turn that off. There's your wiring diagram. If you can see that, I hope you can, otherwise I've got to do this video all again. It's straightforward. From the battery through your ignition switch to the gauge mark plus, an earth from the gauge to the battery, then an earth to your brass terminal on the dipstick, and then from the gauge on the copper side of the dipstick to the gauge itself. And that's as simple as it gets on the wiring. Dead simple, dead easy. And that's it basically. So job done. There is other types of sender which you can use. They use one that fits onto the oil pressure switch, one that goes into the sump plug, one that goes into the pressure relief valve bolt, replaces that, which I tried to get, but basically some company told me they got it, took my money off me and never replaced it, so I had to fight for a refund, but we won't go into that now. So but I find I do like the dipstick. It's a good idea, fits anything, and you can manipulate it, bend it and whatever to make life a lot easy. So there you go, and that's it for part one. We'll go and do part two on the vehicle. Cheers.